In the news this week, the latest in the search for missing 4-year-old girl CLEO Smith.
Also tonight, claims that the multicultural community has been left out of the WA border policy conversation. A WAMN News exclusive. And social justice battle, independent candidates fighting together for the disadvantaged at the next federal election. Plus, Dr. Andrew Miller's comment.
This is The Evening News with Ivan Learn and Sarah Smith.
Good evening. The disappearance of 4-year-old girl CLEO Smith from the Blowhole campsite in Carnarvon continues to grip Australia as police end the search at the site while family members wait in agony.
It comes after authorities offered a $1 million reward for information leading to finding CLEO. Our reporter Melissa Thorne joins us tonight with an update alongside a summary of this week's happenings. Melly, what's the latest?
Yes, Ivan and Sarah. WA Police held a press conference today asking for anyone with information about a vehicle seen near the site of 4-year-old CLEO Smith's disappearance to come forward immediately. Superintendent Rod Wild said they have received calls about a vehicle allegedly spotted near the Carnarvon campsite around the time of CLEO's disappearance. Police are looking for a driver and any passengers who may have been in the vehicle between 3 a.m. and 3:30 a.m. last Saturday morning.
Now, we believe this vehicle turned out of Blowholes Road and headed south towards Carnarvon on the coastal highway. So we have some witnesses that have come forward and said that they observed a vehicle that had travelled out of Blowholes Road around that time. So what we're hoping for is that the persons that were in that vehicle to come forward and make themselves known to police so we can speak to them at this time.
The police believe it was a passenger vehicle but have not revealed any more information about the car. The police say anyone in the car is not a suspect as such, but want to establish their identity and what they were doing. The search has been going for over a week and has covered both land, sea and air. Police are hopeful that CLEO is alive and think she is most likely still in WA. At this moment, it is believed CLEO was not stalked, and the police say they have spoken to and investigated the registered sex offenders in the vicinity of Carnarvon. They've received hundreds of calls and leads that officers are currently looking into. During an emotional interview this week, CLEO's distraught mother described finding her daughter gone in the early hours of that morning.
So Friday night, we came obviously to the Blowholes. We got here about 6:30, it was just before dark. We were able to put the tent up, put our gazebo up, get everything ready for both the girls so then they could go to bed. We made them dinner. CLEO, she went to bed probably about 8 o'clock. Our little one had dinner. She went to bed. We had dinner. We went to bed. That was about it. We went to sleep. CLEO woke up at 1:30 and wanted a drink of water. I got up, got her some water, and yeah, she went to bed. I checked on Isla, made sure Isla was okay. I got back in bed, and that was it really. We went back to sleep, woke up to Isla wanting a bottle. As we passed the divider, I went into the other room and the zipper was open. CLEO was gone.
Though CLEO has been missing for just over a week, the Premier and police are taking no chances, with a $1 million reward for any information that leads to finding her announced earlier this week. Please call Crime Stoppers if you have any information. We'll bring you updates during the week as soon as we have them. Ivan?
Melissa Thorne reporting. Melly, thanks for the update. WA's border restrictions have continued to cause separation agony, with leaders claiming multicultural communities were only given limited consultation about policies by the state government. Ethnic Communities Council's WA President Suresh Rajan warns that discontent is being felt by many and urged WA Premier Mark McGowan to engage with them. Mr Rajan joined me earlier with this exclusive interview. Suresh Rajan, thanks for your time. Were there any conversations between the multicultural community and the state government regarding the future of WA's border policy?
Look, there's been no conversation with the multicultural communities as far as we can ascertain. The impact of closed borders is far more severe on multicultural communities because there are obviously people in the multicultural communities who have family members overseas or who have had family members visiting here who can't go back. So it really is a greater impact on multicultural communities as far as family separation is concerned than it is on mainstream communities. And yet the state government hasn't chosen to talk to any of those communities, and that's disappointing.
So there's absolutely no dialogue at all?
They've had some dialogue in regard to the vaccine rollout, but there hasn't been any dialogue in regard to the borders. I suspect that there hasn't been any discussion with anyone around the vaccine borders, around the borders of the state or the nation, and that's been something that's been largely run by the Premier and his office, so without much consideration for what the impacts are out in the community.
I understand there are border discontent brewing within Khao communities. What has it resulted to now?
There's no doubt that there is a massive amount of discontent out there amongst the multicultural communities. One of the major issues that the multicultural communities are dealing with is the fact that for immigration purposes and for the border purposes, immediate family excludes the parents of people who are here. So there are lots and lots of people who are people who have grandchildren, etc. here, who have no grandparents because their grandparents are considered to be not immediate family and therefore not allowed to come into the country. So there is a massive issue around that. A Facebook page was set up to look at those people, and within a few days they had a membership of about 25,000 people. So there is quite a lot of discontent out there, and that is right across the whole nation. Only last week the Prime Minister indicated that that was going to change, and that from the 1st of November they were going to consider whether or not parents would be considered to be immediate family. Now we're still waiting to see what the result of that is, but that can happen at the federal level, and that will allow people to come into the country, but you still have caps in each of the states relating to overseas arrivals. So those caps are not going to be lifted for people who are not immediate family members, and that includes all parents. So that's going to be a real problem, because you'll be allowed to come into the country, but you won't be allowed to come into the state of your choice.
What are the consequences on the lack of dialogue? What does it mean for the community?
I think what happens then is that you get to the point where people who are the most seriously impacted by border closures, simply because of the family structures, because of the fact that they've come here from overseas, all of their family members are overseas, you are going to get policy that actually discriminates against them in a very, very harsh way. It actually is going to impact on them in a much, much greater level than it is on mainstream Australia, and that's unacceptable.
So finally, how can we fix this problem, and what's your call to Premier McGowan?
I think that it's important that the Premier actually engages with the multicultural communities. Happy for him to come and talk to us at the Ethnic Communities Council, to sit down and talk about it. We can arrange a consultation with all of our community members to come and give him some feedback as to exactly what we think he should be doing insofar as borders are concerned.
Sherish Rajan, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Ivan.
Homelessness prevention, poverty and human rights is set to be the battleground for a group of 5 independent candidates running at the next federal election. They're representing citizens that are disadvantaged and claim governments have failed the have-nots. Nelson Liu reports.
Fighting against social injustice.
We want to make a difference.
A run to the federal election to represent the disadvantaged.
This campaign is about people.
These 5 individual candidates are campaigning together for election as independents under the same ticket for those who are underprivileged. They're supporting people living on the streets.
In regards to the fact that we can and should do a great deal more, from my point of view, it's the absolute fundamental bare bones of what every person deserves is a safe and stable home.
Those who are poor.
Primarily for the have-nots and those who struggle.
People they say aren't being heard.
Running to give voice to the voiceless. Too often we see people being left behind.
Including migrants.
To be the voice for the voiceless of my the migrant community.
As well as Indigenous people.
To give our people a voice and to help them to have a better life that everybody is entitled to.
Homelessness will be their priority, while protecting the rights of all people in the country.
There is no excuse for the 13th largest economy on the planet when smaller economies like Finland are actually eliminating homelessness, and we are starting from the bottom end. It's a triage-based approach. It is about social justice, it's about inequities and inequalities, young and older.
This apartment behind me is where it's all started for the 5 candidates. Their mantra, plain and simple, not to leave the disadvantaged behind.
That's what they say past and present, local, state and federal governments have done.
Our souls have long been burned by the failure of our governments, the poorest amongst us. The human family of all brothers and sisters is not represented. Those with least have been represented even less.
They believe a difference can be made if they're elected.
There's a lot that we can do in Parliament. Parliament actually needs expertise, it needs seasoned individuals.
Nelson Liu, WAMN News.
The Geraldton police officer who shot an Aboriginal mother of one JC has been found not guilty of both murder and manslaughter. The jury gave their verdict late Friday, deliberating for several hours after hearing the last words from the judge. The tension in the courtroom was palpable, and the accused man's lawyer, Linda Black, was accompanied out of district court by heavy police presence.
And he has had no opportunity to be able to express his sorrow for that. He would like to do that today, to say how sad he is, that by doing what he needed to do to preserve peace, it meant someone lost their life. I would also like to say that the protests you're hearing in the background have not come from those people who are closest to JC, who have sat respectfully in the back of the court, who have communicated with us and us with them. They have been polite and courteous and delightful in their conduct and their respect for the court process.
The reaction of the family gathered outside of the courtroom was a combination of relief and outrage. Many Indigenous community members present were deeply upset at the verdict and have vowed to protest.
We don't get no fairness, there's no equality. And this is evident with what's happened here. Wonder why Aboriginal people are so angry and disillusioned with the police and the system. And like I mentioned earlier, Department of Corrective Services, what were they doing when they had her in there for 2 years? Where was that restorative justice? Where was that rehabilitation? There was none.
In a first for WA's public transport network, electric buses will be trialled in Perth early next year. The buses will be on the Joondalup Cat bus route with reliability, efficiency, performance, emissions reductions, life cycle and risks tested during the trial. 2 new buses are on the way, and the McGowan Government says it will be an environmentally friendly way to get around Perth.
This bus will run on the Joondalup Cat system from early next year. And there'll be 3 others that will join it over the next year. So we'll be running the electric buses on the Joondalup Cat service and also through the wider network in the northern suburbs. It's a trial to make sure we can learn about how we can run these buses across the entire network.
Household water use and water bills are set to drop for public housing tenants under an expansion of a water-wise public housing project. Under the expansion over 5 years, 10,000 properties will be retrofitted with water-efficient fixtures, saving 4 billion litres while reducing bills of an average of $66 to $145 each year. The McGowan Government says it will benefit those experienced hardship while helping the environment.
It takes 1 billion litres to fill Optus Stadium, so that's an awful lot of water. This program is going to save us 4 billion litres. So the government's been asking homeowners to be water wise, to retrofit their houses. We're now making sure that the government is leading by example.
Russia has reached record highs in daily COVID-19 case numbers with more than 37,000 infections and more than 1,000 deaths this week. Health experts in the country say the level of infection will continue to rise as authorities urged all citizens to get vaccinated. President Putin will allow the closure of workplaces from the first week of November, with capital city Moscow facing another lockdown. Under the restrictions, only pharmacies, supermarkets and other essential businesses will be allowed to operate. Outgoing German Chancellor Angela Merkel has attended her final European Union summit meeting as leaders paid tribute to her work. The European Commissioner presented a special gift to Merkel, with leaders from other European countries giving her a standing ovation. Merkel has attended EU summit meetings 107 times, meeting 4 French presidents, 5 UK prime ministers, 8 Italian prime ministers during her 16-year tenure as Chancellor.
NASA has completed its new MegaMoon rocket and spacecraft with an aim to carry out deep space operations into the future. The new Orion spacecraft successfully assembled at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida this week. The integration of both rocket system and the Orion spacecraft, meaning preparations for the Artemis missions around the moon, is almost ready. The achievement of this project also serves as a launch pad for human space missions for Mars.
Well, Ivan, last time we had a space story. You weren't too keen to go to Mars.
No.
Would you go to the moon?
Not if I'm a correspondent.
Come on, Ivan, give us a story.
Well, what do you want then?
Suppose the only thing to get from up there is space rocks.
Okay, I mean, that will be one of the considerations if I ever go up there.
Yep, bring me some space rocks.
You give me a reason to go up there just to get you some rocks, is that right?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay,
Very
no
good.
worries at all. And now here's AMAWA spokesperson Dr. Andrew Miller with his weekly COVID-19 update and commentary.
Hi, thanks for your time. Very exciting times with vaccination rates going up and up around the country. Western Australia not quite as quickly as the rest of the country, but hopefully people will get on board with the program fairly soon as we see the end of the year approaching, and our aim is to have 80% of the population over 16 double vaccinated or at least single vaccinated by that stage. And we need to do whatever it takes, whether that's incentives or making it mandated to get people to that point, because it's not just up to individuals, it's about protecting people who can't be vaccinated, such as those under 12 at the moment, and those on chemotherapy or immune suppressed from organ transplant and so on. We really do have to think of others and prevent this horrible disease and its future variants from spreading around. So we're going to need vaccination, we're going to need masks to prevent it from spreading amongst even the vaccinated people, and clean air. Clean air indoors is the new paradigm that we all have to be thinking about very carefully, and in spaces that can't have fresh air, then they certainly need to have the CO2 checked. You can get CO2 monitors online quite cheaply. Make sure the level's under 800 parts per million, and if not, then we have to think about HEPA filtration. Don't worry about ionisers, don't worry about UV, all of that stuff that's being sold at the moment. You need a HEPA filter, HEPA, and that's the one that actually strips the virus out of the air. The news on vaccination for younger ones under 12, very positive coming out of the US at the moment, and they're planning to swing Pfizer into action, at least in California, on the 4th of November, anticipating that on the 3rd it will get the approval of the FDA. So clearly signs are good there, and we would expect that Australia would follow very quickly with that and continue the search for younger kids. But primary school kids, obviously, big source of spread, big source of concern for teachers, and they go in and out of these schools and back into the community and able to get to vulnerable individuals that way. And so really great that we're able to hold the line with low community spread in large parts of Australia before those younger kids are getting vaccinated, avoiding the problems of rare serious illness as well as unknown long-term effects. And we know that 3 months down the track, a lot of these kids, around 7%, are still having long COVID symptoms, which are worrying them and their families, and we want to avoid all of that. We've worked very, very hard in Western Australia to keep this disease out. People have made enormous sacrifices personally into their business, and we don't want that all to go to waste as we're coming around the bend onto the home straight to getting vaccination for everyone, hopefully, in the population. We need to reach out to anti-vaxxers with good information and with compassion. Bring people along. We don't need abuse, we don't need shaming. What we need is understanding, and really it's a very small proportion of the population, as we're seeing in the ACT with close to 100% vaccination rates. Many postcodes in Sydney, well over 95% vaccination rates. So Australians are convinced about vaccine. We always have been. We've always immunised our kids, and we know that along with measles, polio, rubella, diphtheria, tetanus, etc., etc., etc. All those diseases that we want no part of, COVID is certainly one of those. So if you have any hesitation, now's the time to go and get the jab and get over that. It's not a problem for women's fertility. It's not a problem in pregnancy. In fact, it is essential in pregnancy that people get vaccinated, because if you get COVID while you're pregnant, bad news for mum and baby. So by all means, reach out to your GP for more information. don't go to Facebook. Go ahead, get your vaccine done, and I'll have our fingers crossed that our primary school kids will get over the line for a vaccine very shortly. Thanks for your time.
And that's Dr. Andrew Miller. Here's Leo with what's coming up on 6 News tonight.
Thanks, guys. Tonight on 6 News, breaking news, Victoria draws closer to 80% double dose eased restrictions after celebrations following the end of Melbourne's 6th lockdown. Students in Years 3 to 11 set to continue returning to in-person learning tomorrow. We'll tell you everything you need to know. Plus, invade Australia. Conservative commentator Candace Owens calls on the US to free us from a tyrannical police state, even as lockdowns end in all states and territories. But that hasn't stopped misinformation from spreading worldwide. And tributes continue to flow for cinematographer Helena Hutchins, killed by a prop gun fired by Alec Baldwin on the set of his new movie, as the entertainment industry and people right around the world ask how this could happen. We can see full details on those stories and plenty more by heading to our YouTube channel. Just search 6 News Australia to find us, or our website, 6newsau.com. For now though, guys, it's back to you.
Thanks, Leo. And that's our weekly news and current affairs. We have the latest on our website at wamnnews.com.au.
From Sarah and myself, we wish you good health, good night. See you next Sunday.
Thanks for stopping by.